A few days ago, I asked you all this question over on my community wall. When it comes to your mental health, what are some of your main issues that, if fixed, would change your life forever? And to my surprise, the majority of you answered with social anxiety. Now, I've struggled with social anxiety before. Luckily, I don't anymore, and that's because I implemented the same strategies that I'm about to share with you today. There's quite a few of them, but it's my hope that you can walk away from this video and implement each and every one of them to the effect by which you can be liberated from crippling social anxiety, because a lot of it's in your head, right? A lot of it is. And if it isn't, if you're doing something during a conversation that not many people like, you can always just single that attribute of your character out and fix it, right? Resolve it. But most of the time, the thoughts of, what if I sound dumb? What if they notice that I'm fidgeting, that I'm agitated? What if they walk away and speak to their friends after this conversation and say that I was weird, that I'm just strange? Now, I heard this once during my late night scrolling on the phone, right? I think it was Instagram. Someone said that, hey, you're made in God's image. So how can you possibly believe that you're anything less than that, than God? And it struck a chord with me because, I've spent a decent amount of time, like most people, believing that I'm less than because someone else told me so. And there's probably some senses, some insults that have been carried over to today. But after hearing that, it helped. It helped. And it might help you all out too. Even if it's just a little bit, even if it's just a smidget, it'll add up with all the other things that I'll say for you to do. And then in their entirety, you'll start to feel cured of social anxiety. Okay? Now let's get into some of the more practical things, because you'll get some perceptions, some mind-bending perspectives on yourself, sure, but you're gonna need some physical things too. Wow, some of these are taking me back in time. Know what there is to like about yourself. You see, this is very important because if you understand the things that make you smile about, you, perhaps it's your charisma, your quirkiness, perhaps it's your smile. Maybe when you speak at the side of your mouth, You ever seen those people? There are likable traits about everyone, and if you can identify what yours are, then if you like them, it stands to reason that the majority of people around you also like them. Right? So rather than you sitting there or standing amidst a conversation and bombarding yourself with, oh, what if they don't like me because of this, that, and the third thing, you're flipping it on its head completely and you're saying, I like this about me. Maybe they will too. You'll find that when you do this, and you're going to have to do this almost every time that you get into a conversation for the first, let's say, 3 to 4 months, you'll find that you'll naturally lean into your quirks and you'll start to express them even more, enjoying the conversation overall. Oh, this is a really good one. Come to know that there is no such thing as the word weird. This is very important, okay? I say this to people all the time, especially if they call me out to be weird. I say, I'm not weird, you're just uncomfortable, right? You ever had that? Perhaps you're looking at somebody who isn't quite dressed the way that you'd usually see people dressed, or perhaps they wear piercings on their face in a certain way, or perhaps they speak in a different manner, different from you and your friends. And then you'll start to get uncomfortable. Now, have you ever turned around and said that that person is weird? Perhaps you say it to your friends, hey, that person's weird. They're not weird. You're uncomfortable. And the same thing's going to happen to you. You're going to find that you're in a conversation and you're fine. You're fine. I cannot tell you how many times I've been in a conversation completely okay, and people have become uncomfortable around me and then turned around and said, you're weird. But essentially, like I said, there's no such thing as weird. You're not weird. They're feeling uncomfortable, and it's a projection that you're experiencing. When they project that towards you, don't buy it. Just relax and be like, they're uncomfortable. It's probably something about me that they're uncomfortable with. And again, I'll talk about some more things later that exclude you from those things completely. Okay? That's in relation to how you should think when people don't actually like you. And again, that makes sense later because you've got to go in a different train of thought when that's the actual case. Here's a good one. Be okay with not saying anything. Realize that saying nothing is saying something. And realize that saying nothing and being comfortable with saying nothing helps the other person and or people around you say nothing. Sounds like a tongue twister, but it's literally that. When you can relax, just be comfortable doing nothing. Perhaps you're looking around, you're looking at the sky. Your demeanor will be relaxed, your shoulders will drop. Perhaps your hands will be exposed and open and, just showing that you're generally okay. Because if you start doing this or you're hiding your hands, that can make another person nervous because your hands could be up to something. Perhaps they're pulling out a weapon like a knife. Of course, you're not doing that, but that's the way that the person's brain will perceive the lack of hands, right? It's actually pretty interesting. One of the things I love to do to make another person comfortable is I like to take my wallet out and my phone. And let's say there's a table in front of me, I'll just put it on the table. And I'll just ignore it. It makes the other person feel as if, you're comfortable enough around their presence to be vulnerable with your items, your personal items. That's crazy. I didn't actually put that on the list, but that's something you can do. It actually works. And you might find that when you're uncomfortable, you actually take your phone and put it in your back pocket, away from the person because you don't want them to touch your things. You're looking at them as a threat. Okay? So say nothing. And while you're saying nothing, take your phone out, put it on the table and just relax. Don't look at it, just relax. You can make small talk if you want. Did you see the game the other day? Just pad out the conversation with nothing. When they see that you're comfortable doing nothing, they too will do nothing. Watch, they'll start to relax, they'll breathe. Breathe. Let's say you've both been talking for a while and you're like, I could really use a break. And breathe into doing nothing. When you breathe, people will mirror you. Watch, if you've got 3 friends in front of you, they'll both breathe at the same time. And everyone will relax and do nothing and look around. You'll mirror each other. That's another thing that's not on this list. You'll probably get some more things as we keep talking. Again, I've done these. They work. All right? And again, it alleviates their pressure to contribute towards a conversation if they know that they can too do nothing. Oh, this one's a really good one. I use this with my mum and I use it with taxi drivers too, because taxi drivers, they don't like picking you up. They don't. It's very rare that you get one that does. Maybe I should just say that instead. It's more accurate. I once had a stripper pick me up. He was a male stripper and he could talk for days. And that's because I found out what topics turn him on, as it pertains to a conversation. There are certain things that you can ask, certain things that you can suggest that will just have people talk for hours. Literally, if you let them. My mum, hers is Disney and how they try to enforce a woke message onto the viewer or the viewers, right? She hates it. And if you bring that up, even in the slightest way. She'll just keep talking and talking and talking. Now this is great because it allows you to just relax, knowing that the brunt of the conversation will be carried by this other person, giving you plenty of time to listen if you'd like, which I hope you would like to. It'd be rude if you didn't. As well as to give yourself enough time to think about what you're going to say next, right? So you're letting them speak for a long period of time, allowing you to sit back and absorb all of it if you want, go on with the story. Or think about, okay, I've got enough time to think about what I'm going to say next. It's great. When it came to the male stripper, what switched him on was talking about psychedelics. He went straight into cocaine, doing MCAT, ketamine, and other things. He took so much cocaine, he was awake for 4 days. I think it was cocaine and ecstasy. He mixed them. Definitely don't do that. But yeah, he talked for a while. He actually talked for so long. He gave me his phone number. He said, he said, at any point in time that you need a ride, just call this number. I'll come and pick you up directly, and I'll give you a discount. And I did. I would call him to go to the airports, and he would keep talking and talking. It would build onto the next conversation, and then the last would build onto the next one. We had a really good connection just because of that. This next one is called Embrace the Interruptions. Okay. Have you ever had somebody, perhaps you're talking to a girl that you would like to date, and some dude comes in and just cuts you off, starts interjecting with his own stuff, maybe a completely different topic, right? It's annoying, but you could use that to your advantage. You can take a step back and be like, okay, cool. I'll let them talk. Perhaps I'll chime in from time to time, but I'm gonna savor my conversation with this person. And I'll use it so that later on I can come back around to them and then continue where we last left off. It's brilliant because it allows you to not only start up one conversation, 2 conversations with multiple people, especially if you're in a nightclub, but you can get back to those people and continue talking to them for the rest of the night. It's essentially you pressing pause on your conversation to resume said conversation later. And it really does work. And in addition to being able to circle back around to the person, continuing your conversation, it'll also give you something to say. Because most of the time we're thinking about, okay, what should I say next? What should I say next? What should I say next? You don't have to think like that if you know that you can just continue your conversation. This one's cool. Be aware of how much time is actually passing when you don't say something. Now, this is very important because, most of the time when we're in a conversation, we experience a brain fart. We're talking, we're like, okay, this is going good. And then all of a sudden we'll run out of things to say, or maybe we just don't know how to respond. And during that moment of pause, it can feel like an eternity. But in reality, you've only been stuck for like a second or two, sometimes way less than that. But our brain, because we're in this hyper agitated state, we're in fight or flight, everything slows down, including our thoughts. And so we're experiencing time a little differently compared to the person in front of us. And during that lapse in judgment, we can assume that the person that we're speaking to is looking at us in a weird way. But that's not the case at all. And the way that you're going to prove this to yourself is by recording yourself having a fake conversation. This is very important. Okay, set up a camera and just talk and talk and talk. And when you have those moments of, what should I say next? Let it play out and then continue talking. Rewatch the video and then pay attention to those moments, where you're experiencing a brain fart. And you'll realize that actually hardly any time had passed at all. Matter of fact, that looked completely normal. Get this, the people that you're speaking to think the same way. They haven't noticed that you've paused at all. Matter of fact, it looks completely natural to them. Your ability to form sentences, to tell stories, to communicate. And knowing that, look at it on the video, notice when it happens. Knowing that, say to yourself, okay, the next time that I pause in a conversation, I should just relax and keep talking anyway, because I'm most likely coming across as normal. Matter of fact, I know I am because I'm seeing it in this videotape. I cannot express to you how important this is. I've done it so many times and it really does work. Another thing that you can do in order to shed social anxiety is imagine people liking you in your head. Yeah. Imagine people, do this when you're at home, close your eyes and imagine people liking you. Imagine people listening to what you're saying and actually smiling at you and getting comfortable. They're not judging you at all. Matter of fact, they're asking you, what happened then? And then what happened? And where did you go after that? They're asking you follow-up questions. Imagine that. What will happen is if you do this every single day, then the next time you go to speak to somebody, you'll automatically assume that they're going to react to you in the same way as the people do in your head. Okay, this isn't crazy, this is just normal, because we tend to follow our example of ourselves within our imagination. And so if we imagine ourselves being fumbly with our words, being boring in a conversation, and we're like, oh, here we go, I'm about to tank this. Then you step into an interaction, guess what? You're going to follow after your imagination. You're going to start to behave in the same way that you think you should. So you're just changing that a little bit. After a while, you'll start to think, why did I do this in the first place? I mean, at first you might think you're being fake, but then you'll realize that you've been doing this anyway for the majority of your life, just in a negative way. So was you being fake then? Or was you just accidentally self-sabotaging yourself? And now you get to choose how you show up in a conversation. I mean, it's all coming from you anyway, the good and the bad. So who's to say what's fake? Maybe you're just tuning into a more authentic, comfortable expression of yourself. And I'd say choose that over the destructive version of yourself, the version of you that knows how to say the wrong thing at precisely the right time to screw up a conversation. This one has saved me on so many occasions. Realize that 80% of your body language, this includes your facial expressions, serve as the bulk of your conversation. This means that where there are no words, you can instead pad out your sentences with facial expressions and gestures to allow yourself some time to think about what to say next. Shall I say it again? So basically, when you realize that the majority of the conversation is how you're expressing yourself, you can, and I just did it there, you can pad out the sentence with facial expressions, which still communicate the fact that you're communicating, but also give you enough time to think about what to say. So you'll seem entertaining. You won't seem like you've just stopped. You'll seem like you're still communicating, and that will come across as completely natural to people. I just did it then. Matter of fact, I just did it then too. You see what I mean? You're doing things that to the viewer, at least in this case, because I'm recording a video, will seem as natural, but it gives you a little bit of time to think about how you're going to formulate the rest of your sentence. Okay? And I just did it then for a second, and it made a little bit of a noise. It's completely normal. I remember a time when I thought that I couldn't do that. I thought that was kind of strange. It made it so much more easier to shoot videos when I allowed myself time to be very expressive during those moments of pause, which again gave me that chance to think about for a moment as to what I was going to say next. Okay? So get used to doing that. Record yourself too. If you're a YouTuber, it helps dramatically. I love this. I love it. I love it. These next two things are quite small, but impactful. In the beginning of a conversation, have something in your hand. Okay? This is important because when you have something in your hand, it takes the pressure off of the other person who's, probably worrying about as to how to greet you. Shall I shake the person's hand? Shall I hug them? What shall I do? That can make a person very uncomfortable. But if your hand's in your pockets, or if you have a phone in your hand, it takes the pressure off of them because now they realize that, I just, I don't have to do anything at all. It seems like the situation has taken care of itself. It's so useful. Small, but useful. The second thing here, announce in the beginning of a conversation that you don't have much time to talk. It automatically sets up in the other person's head that you're only going to be there for a short period of time. Therefore, they don't have to worry about you. Well, they don't have to worry about them thinking about things to say. How am I going to continue this conversation? Perhaps they find it very difficult to have a long-standing conversation. But knowing that they don't have to put that much effort into it because you're going to be gone in like 5 seconds is great. It's getting pretty dark in here. It's amazing. And you can do this in group settings too. Okay, let's say someone introduces you to a whole bunch of people. You're like, oh, this is too many people to get to know. Be like, oh, sure, I'll say hi, but I can only be here for like a minute, then I've got to go. That's great. It actually makes them as well, very disappointed because perhaps they wanted to speak to you for a while, which is good because then later on, especially if it's in, again, another party setting, later on they'll individually come to you and be like, hey, I want to know more about you. So you kind of set yourself up there for success. Okay, so now we're at the point in this video where it benefits to control the direction of your thoughts if a person doesn't like you. Because if a person doesn't like you, the first thing we can say is, oh no, am I under threat? Is he going to say something or she going to say something that's going to embarrass me? Are they going to try and belittle me, patronize me, condescend me? What are they going to do, right? Am I going to end up fighting this person? Especially if they're drunk. But here's the thing, this is what you want to think about during these situations. It could just be their relationship with the people that look like you. This is very important, especially if you're, say, biracial or black. I've noticed this happens a lot, especially in America. When people see you and you're colored, unless you say something very quick in the first few seconds to discredit their assumption, they get very uncomfortable around you and they most likely won't like you. It's a shame, but I mean, we just live in an environment. I really don't like it. We live in a culture that does that. We assume straight away based on our ethnicity as to whether or not we're going to get along with a person. We kind of drop ourselves in positions of authority based on racial status. It's freaking horrible. Not everyone does it, of course, but it's there, And again, maybe this person just has a bad relationship with people who look like me. Now, besides from race, it can also be personal. Perhaps they dated someone who had red hair and it was a bad relationship and now you have red hair and you're in front of them. Your name's Kyle. I don't like Kyle. My ex was called Kyle, right? Now, this could work in your favor, of course, if they like someone or if they've only dated specific people with a certain name and now, congratulations, you have the same name, they're gonna like you, right? That's, of course, in the context of, I guess you can say, dating, right? It pays there, but it's also not so useful because really, do they like you or do they just like you because you remind them of their exes? Now we're getting off topic. Their relationship with people like you, that determines whether or not they're gonna like you or hate you. Don't take any of it personally. Like I said earlier, you've got a few seconds to change their mind. I find the fastest way to change people's mind, if this is the case, is just to articulate differently. Just to speak normal. And straight away, their assumptions get laid to rest. And you're like, yeah. And you can see it in their face and in their body language. They just completely relax. It's just one of those things. Think sometimes, if they don't like you, just think perhaps they're having a bad day, especially if it's the evening or late afternoon. Maybe they're just having a bad day. Now, if you have any other concerns, I am a life coach. You can check out my services over on my website, ryancopper.com. I'm here to help. Also, I have other videos on social anxiety over on my YouTube channel. Take care. I'll speak to you all pretty soon.